This channel is supported by TrueFire. TrueFire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses.
Question I kind of had: if I had to choose one guitar manufacturer to pick from that would do kind of all of the guitars that I might like to experiment with in my life, and I could pick only one, you know, like a weird pointless hypothetical, would I choose a Fender, Gibson? You know, what of these companies would I choose? And I thought, like, well, a Fender, you kind of limit yourself to mostly single coil options, right? And if you chose Gibson, you kind of rule out single coil options. If you chose PRS, you get like a mixture of the two. Or you kind of go outside the box and you think about someone like Tokai, for example, who have been around since sort of 1947, but I think it was the 70s where they really started to essentially just copy what Gibson and Fender were doing and do it in a way that was good enough for Fender that they started actually building guitars for Fender, and was good enough for Gibson to start trying to sue them. I think that's the case anyway. But so what I was thinking is, if you want a great Les Paul, you could buy a Tokai. If you want a great Strat or Telly, you could buy a Tokai. If you want a great ES335, you could buy a Tokai. And that covers, you know, more of the major food groups than I think any other manufacturer. An SG as well, Flying V. I think Ibanez was one of those ones that I used to think of as being, you know, they build plenty of great stuff, and also they had this similar kind of background where they used to actually copy some of the Fender stuff. But modern day Ibanez's don't necessarily, you've got like the AZ, for example, one of which has two single coils and a humbucker, right? So that could cover that. They've got obviously plenty of choices for humbucking guitars. They've got plenty of choices for semi-hollow, so I guess of the big manufacturers, maybe Ibanez might be the one that I would pick. But Tokai, for me, I think they're still very highly regarded. So this is a Les Paul ULS, something like that, obviously gold top and P90s. The thing that I've noticed most about Tokai guitars, I've had a few come through my house because I just demoed some for a shop in Denmark Street called Rose Morris, who actually were responsible for owning Vox at one point or another. Interesting bit of history. But yeah, they're all really, really high quality, especially the Japanese stuff is really what I'm talking about here. They do some Chinese things as well, which I'm less impressed by. But in terms of bang for buck, I don't think there's anything you can do better than a second-hand Tokai. Now, again, let me know in the comments if you've experiences that are different to this, but I feel like Tokai are quite well regarded by almost everyone. Good enough for Stevie Ray Vaughan at points. Let me know again your favourite players. I think John Sykes was here, Tokai player. Really, really solid instruments. They're using real cowbone. They don't weight relieve the guitars either. This one weighs £9 and 8 ounces, which is not light for a Les Paul, but not super heavy either. My Gibson, which would be weight relieved because it's from 2002, weighs about £9, 2 ounces. So this is a bit heavier than that, but of course this doesn't have any kind of weight relief or any chambering. Really like mahogany they've used on this, which is beautiful. And yeah, the fretwork is immaculate. The wood that they choose tends to be really good stuff. Apparently they use quite hard Canadian maple on their tops. I don't really see the downside, except for if you buy one new and then sell it. Generally there's a little bit of a, you know, it's not the best kind of, they don't hold their value as well as potentially say a Gibson. But let me know your thoughts about whether you'd buy a Gibson new now or a Tokai new. Which would you rely on more? I know for sure there was a period of years where people have been very sniffy about Gibson's guitars and being hit and miss. I think that period is maybe over a bit now, and people are more used to Gibson kind of having sorted out their QC to some extent. Yeah, let's just hear it a bit. I also played that blue Tokai Strat, which was a new Japanese one, which was really nice. But I've equally owned, and Rick now looks after this guitar for me. I gave it to him, a 1984, I think, Gold Star Sound. That was a really nice guitar too. But this one kind of sounds great, plays really well as well. Tokai, in my experience, everything that I've seen of theirs is incredibly precise, down to like the tidiness of the finishing. They make some of the tidiest guitars that I've ever seen. You know, I've seen PRSs that have little bits and pieces wrong with them, even if they're sort of £5 guitars. The Tokai Japanese stuff, just to me, seems that whatever they're doing, they get incredibly correct. You know, everything is just finished perfectly from what I can tell. All that is to say that I think if you're looking for an incredibly good value, well-made guitar, a used Tokai, I feel like might be the way to go. Now, my dad was the first person to introduce me to Tokai guitars, as the church that we went to at the time, there was a chap who used a Japanese Tokai, was initially Fiesta Red, and he'd unfinished it to be like natural. I don't really remember anything other than it looking really cool at the time, and so for me, Tokai has always had a bit of a special kind of space in my memory where it's like, okay, yeah, that's a serious guitar for the amount of money that you end up paying for them. You can even get like early 80s Tokais still for, you know, £500 at a time, for what is now sort of a vintage guitar. I think it's quite an interesting way to get quite a lot of guitar for your money. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Have you tried one? Do you dig one? Do you play one? Do you hate them? Love to know your thoughts. Cheers for now.